Hey guys, it's Brad. Um, I've had a whole lot happen in my life the past 3 or so weeks, and most of it I haven't shared with anybody. It's just been, that type of really deep, focused, intense stuff that is, hard to talk about, partially just because of the sheer amount of it. But um, anyway, Um, so I decided to make before I go on to more content-based videos about what I've lived through, or what I've discovered, or what happened. I just thought I would go ahead and make a more sort of humanistic video for myself, basically, to get the story out there. Get the feeling that the context is understood, or at least people know the context. Um, and just kind of take care of part of my need to share and to be related and to feel safe and all that. But it also will be useful context for the later videos that I have kind of in the works. Just to know uh, how to get to those points. So. Um, what happened was I don't even know how long ago it was now. It can't have been a month, but it feels, I want to say a month. Um, I was in a I was felt very at the liberty of my codependency, and also feeling a lot of pull from my addiction. Um, I wasn't in an active addiction, but I was having a lot of cravings, and I was managing to talk myself down and walk myself back a lot with that. And I was really focusing on the psychological, the cause or the need, or, the underlying thing that my psyche was asking for instead of the drugs. So I wasn't really thinking that, hey, addiction's a big problem. But what was a big problem was my friend Michael, who was dating my sister, was kind of suddenly like living here. Just like it happened that way, not like officially living here, but and I found this shows how kind of rickety my lifestyle is, but um, I just need a lot of solitude to stay sane, and I'm very I have a long ways to go as far as social skills, mostly in being able to ignore, perceived social tensions or codependent tension or just any sort of energetic interaction I'm really susceptible to with other people in my living space. And I just got super, super stressed. And, um, and it wasn't just that, but that kind of ramped the whole thing up, and it kind of became like it felt like the biggest part, like the most salient part was, like, God, I can't stand having Michael around anymore. Even though he's a dear friend, but it's just a whole different dynamic and a harder dynamic for me when it's a roommate and a boyfriend and all these different things. And I didn't intend to talk. I don't want to talk too much about that because I don't want to make it seem like I'm blaming Michael. But remember, this is kind of for me. So whatever I talk about is fine. So anyway, I eventually started realizing, I need to take action if I'm not okay with the situation. Um, and I talked to mom and I talked to Michael and blah 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 and did the same thing over, and kind of his situation was uh, pretty parallel to mine. I mean, it was all the pieces were working together. Um, And so it happened that um, there was like a last night that Michael was staying here, and that had kind of been just decided that evening, I guess. And I was aware of that, and what happened was, okay, so I had been, there was a smattering of times, a couple of times, like half dozen times or so, total over like the preceding like 2 or 3 weeks or so, where I had either smoked weed or drunk alcohol, and it really felt like, see, it was I'm not sure actually how I could even say it that it would make sense except in light of what comes after. Um, what I want to say is that I was sort of like shielded by being caught up in this uh, system of codependency and like interpersonal energy, um, to where those times, those smattering of times when I drunk or smoked, were were not they weren't pure addiction. It was sort of more like self medication. It wasn't uh, a like a drive of me and within me and directed straight at drugs. It wasn't like that. Um, and in some ways, I think it was. I mean, there was maybe a component that was like that, but it was somehow shielded by this wider social picture. And Michael and Aaron were, smoking and drinking every single day. Like that was part of it too. Um, me comparatively, in that situation, it was a different story. But yeah, a little uncomfortable. I hope it's okay that I'm just gonna keep talking. Um, so Michael's, just gone up to bed, but it's understood that this is like his last night. Or maybe I didn't understand it till the next night, but I feel like I knew somehow. And so anyway, and I had been drinking a little, and for some reason, after Michael and Aaron were upstairs and Mom was in bed, um, I'd already had a drink or so and didn't feel, just felt the normal kind of like frisky, let's keep it secret, but generally okay, not like I'm doing something horrible. Um, but after it was all the people were kind of cleared away for the night, and it was just me. Um, I wanted to drink again, and I don't really know if I could tell you why. I mean, it's a certain sort of fatal attraction. Um, there might have been like an ego level of like, um, you know, uh, like carving out a space for me, like marking my territory with an act of defiance. Many times, drinking is, or drugs have done that a lot, and I think they're really pretty good at that for certain applications. But it wasn't primarily that. It was kind of like I I have the rest of this bottle left, and I feel really drawn toward it, but I also feel this kind of undefined sense of doom. Um, and it's amazing to me how, the voices of God and the voices of my heart and the Christ, all of these kind of guardian type voices for me, um, just go totally silent when when I'm right up against like some sort of drug or addiction thing that is that's within reach, like beyond the point of thinking about it, searching for it, looking for it, but like it's right there, and and all I have to go on is my mind, which includes my conscience, of course, but the conscience doesn't feel very moralistic in that sense. It's really like a calculation. Do I do this? Do I not do this? And and so when I'm in that state, when I'm in a state like that, um, I guess that sense of doom or dread was a hard sense, or it was real. I was right. My actions vindicated that sense. um, but but leading up to it, um, I feel so cognitive, so rational, so ego based that I don't have any um, rationale for heeding a feeling, just a disembodied feeling. And the rationale is you've drunk like 3 out of the past 5 nights and it's fine, and um, how is this going to be so much different? And well, even if it is, well, we'll deal with it. Um, but anyway, so I did, and it turned out to be different. I mean, like I said, the feeling was indicated. So um, I can't really, I can't because I'm not willing to think back to what happened, what it felt like. But I can surely describe it, and the way I would describe it is that um, I was broken again, but I had never. I mean, the brokenness that I've been talking about for the past 7+ years is, had never. I don't mean that I had been fixed and then I broke myself again. No, it was the same action, the same type of event which took place, which produced my original physical brokenness, happened again, on a deeper level. So, um, and I guess it was very scary. There was a lot of feeling of horror, but it wasn't. I mean, it didn't change me physically. It wasn't somatic because the somatic level had already been broken like that. Um, so basically, what happened was that I had broken through into the abyss, which is threeness. So two-dimensional reality, which it can be called hell, which is where demons dwell, which has the cognitive slash collective unconscious memories of the third age, like the age of heroes, like Greek gods and stuff. Um, so that those are just I'm saying these things to give you all some sense. I'm not really trying to be. I'm not really trying to like conjure an image, or I'm also not trying to define anything. that will be in the coming videos that this video, might be setting the scene for, if all goes well. So yeah, I'm really just trying to say, in case this means anything to you, this is what happened. Um, but I should stress that I never left my body. Um, I was in brand new places in my mind, in my vision, my consciousness. And I'm taking this at a much slower pace than I thought, but I figure that's still good because I'm still getting this off my chest. I mean, if this is more like a therapy session than anything, then that's fine with me. So anyway, and I don't really remember very well what happened then. I didn't sleep for like 10 or 11 nights, starting with that night, and my memory of the first couple nights is um, pretty vague. I mean, really nothing. I had a lot of new feelings to face and fears to get over and get comfortable with, quite quickly. But I didn't really have all that many extraordinary experiences that stuck with me. I didn't really have all that many things that were, huge learning experiences. At least as far as I remember at the beginning part. But what I did have happen, crucially, I realized that going into this, working up to this, presaging this, I don't even know how that's how you pronounce that. Presage. Um, I had noticed that I was committing just a big no-no when it comes to these things, which I won't. These things, which is that I had been living a life rife with codependency and in which mental illness and codependency, like, I kind of let out of the bag, and they were running around doing their thing, and um, drug use I was still having under control. I wasn't in active addiction, and I realized that goes against a lot of spiritual instinct to have something spiritual, magical, maybe more magical instinct than to have something um, partially controlled so that it's partially effective. And I sort of knowingly realized if I'm having these dysfunctions, and I have these 3 dysfunctions that are kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say my cross to carry, because it doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't have to be a thing of suffering, but these 3 different, I don't know, dimensions, sides, aspects of my struggle, the three problems that define all my other problems, the 3 root problems, the uh, three strands and the Gordian knot of my life, like all of the sin, error, darkness, blah blah blah, whatever, is traces back to these, and their codependency, mental illness, as in bipolar or bipolar schizo, and an addiction. So anyway, so I wasn't like explicitly looking to let addiction out of the bag and really have them all through run rampant, but I was also aware of the relative desirability of that, because that is better than having 2 out of 3 or 1 out of 3. You either want none or you want all of of something like that. Um, so anyway, getting a little tired of talking, so I'll probably end it pretty soon. But what I was gonna say was that for the first time over the past 3.5, 4 weeks, I understand what addiction really is about. Like, I understand what just the ridiculous superlatives people throw around, and extremes, and just talking about it like it's just utterly unfathomable and utterly devastating. I, I had always drawn that as a point of contention um, with my own experience, because my own experience has always been um, had some ability to control uh, addiction in to the extent that I have the will to do so, um, and getting out of control only to the point that some external mechanism in the pattern will get triggered and bring me back to safety. Like never feeling, um, sometimes fearing that it would go this way, but never actually feeling, wow, I'm just at the whim of the wind, and I'm out of control, and never feeling. I guess always having thought of the addictive drive as something that has power because I endorse it and because I'm in a certain mind frame where maybe for a while I over and over kind of, I'm going to go with this, but it's still sort of an act of will. Um, and so when I went to rehab last year, um, I was always positioning myself as an outlier. I mean, I genuinely was an outlier, but I was really taking a stand on that, you know, um, trying to differentiate myself from, well, hey, I'm not like this, I don't really believe all these things. Maybe that's your experience, but my experience is different. And I mean, I'm thankful to say that uh, I still think my experience by and large is different. I mean, if I've had 3 weeks of an experience that's more like the classic, and versus 6.5 years of an experience that was more like what I'm used to. I still, I guess I'm saying, I have lived enough. It's like I've walked a mile in their shoes, sort of thing. Like I've lived enough of that experience of addiction as just overpowering and irrational, and just like utterly out of control, and making of one's life uh, like a tornado or something. I don't know. I feel I still haven't really thought about this much. I mean, I still have been trying to control it and to rely on my faith, and um, see, now I'm making myself anxious. I shouldn't be saying this stuff. I shouldn't be talking so much details about right now, because people will watch this. Um, But anyway, so yeah, so even though it's still not my primary top of mind personal experience understanding of what addiction is, I have had a glimpse of what it can be. And I have a point of empathy and a point of relating that I didn't have before, to these superlative things that they say in the readings at NA meetings and AA meetings and that sort of thing. Um, so I guess the challenge for me, assuming that I continue on with my plan of pursuing addiction treatment, long-term treatment, is to try to keep that in mind, um, which I think will be difficult, honestly, because there was this one lesson about addiction, um, was still far and away a minority lesson. You know, I mean, it's not a lesson that's exciting. It's nothing to get my mind into. It's just like, holy fuck, addiction really is really fucking bad. Like, it's awful and it's under control. But like, there's nothing there for me to model. There's nothing there for me to teach about. There's nothing there for me to talk about. And a lot of the other things that I learned over the past couple of weeks are like that. You know, they're things that expand my theory and things that could really help a lot of people. They got a lot of understanding about um, how schizospectrum stuff works, schizoaffective and schizophrenic, and and kind of related phenomena. Um, so anyway, I mean, I'm getting ahead of myself, and I guess in part now that I'm a little more self-conscious and I'm trying to think, you know, what are they going to be thinking when they see this? Um, yeah, I'm trying since I'm trying to balance between telling you what I was going to tell you and making sure that you realize that the context is such that this part that I'm telling you right now today, this is just a you know it's a little piece of the pie, but it's the piece that I started with, and may as well finish it. So to finish it, and this is easy, um, I discovered very much to my surprise that of these three dysfunctions, codependency, mental illness, and addiction, um, addiction is actually the deepest. Um, so that doesn't mean not the deepest in my biography, not the first, but addiction recurses infinitely in a way that the others don't. You know, bipolar, sure, it has, you know, sweeps of energy flows and stuff that happen over a course of, for me, it's like 2.5 years, the period of my, the former period, anyway, of my manias. Lots, it's complex and it stacks up in a lot of different ways over time. And there's kind of like short, medium, and long term effects of it, and you know, I'm trying to say that it's sweeping and it does impact life a lot. And codependency, in my biography, is by far the deepest. Depending on how I define it, it might go back all the way to when I was 6 or something. Um, and I think it's probably the biggest obstacle to my productively achieving my work. You know, worrying about what other people think of me, uh, having a very hard time following my will, doing what I'm planning on doing when other people come into the house, or you know, especially people around me when I'm trying to live and work. Um, you know, trip me up way too much. That's see, I'm trying to say that they're all very important. They're all very influential. They're all very major. Um, if you'd asked me, I would say that I've suffered a lot more from mental illness than from addiction. So it's not a matter of the depth of suffering or the magnitude of the problem or the historical depth. I'm strictly speaking about the fact that addiction, it's this ceaseless vacuum or whirlpool um, that never that will never reach an end. That just doesn't have its there's no limit to its recursion. Um, and ironically, that makes it the thing that kind of ties them all together, that ties the three of them together. Um, kind of the way I've been saying it is that I realized that addiction is the loose thread I have to pull to unravel the whole thing. Um, so the whole thing is woven of these three different things and probably various other things. Addiction is just the you know the collapsing maelstrom or whatever metaphor you want to use, like the thing that has to be loosed um, to allow for everything else to kind of much more naturally, gracefully unfurl its wings. Um, it's the only thing with any weight, if you could say. Um, like, it's like I'm an eagle trying to fly, but like I can't spread my wings because they're caught in this, iron thing that they're holding, and so I can't even spread them. But um, once I drop that, then God kicks in. I mean, not that God could ever not kick in, but like that. Um, that particular infinite loop away from God is the one thing that will never cease holding me back until I let it go. You know, whereas the others I can kind of grow out of. Um, I can kind of allow God to transform them. Um, this manner of uh, this matter of addiction and recovery, because I'm specifically talking about recovery. I'm not talking about quitting using drugs. I'm not talking about any sort of kind of cognitive level or psychological or behavioral level thing. I'm talking about the entire spiritual process of, taking from an infinite, like recovering things from a black hole, kind of, like pulling back out from the bottom and allowing, and just having this perpetual process to do that, because it is a perpetual, infinite process. Um, so it very much surprised me, within the past month or so to realize that, because I'd always kind of thought of addiction as just ancillary, just kind of the most phenomenological of my problems, kind of the most circumstantial, like that I could avoid just by uh, improving life circumstances. Um, so yeah, for sure I've said enough. Like for sure I've said enough. And maybe I've said too much. Um, but I shouldn't worry about that. I'm gonna choose not to worry about that. Um, This is long enough that who's gonna watch to the end anyway? Um, okay, I guess that's the first introductory video. I guess so what I wanted to talk about was my three problems and addiction and how it's the kind of the cornerstone. Yeah. Um, Maybe I'll do some more videos like this. This wasn't bad. I don't know if people will see it, but I don't really care if people see it that much. Okay, uh, expect some real content though too. Like I am gonna start teaching stuff again. Okay.